So this here is going to be a video on how to paint Space Marine faces. So we've got two different heads here. We're going to make one dark skin and one light skin. And we're just going to go through the paints that you're going to use to do that. So the first one we'll do is probably the lieutenant we've got over here. And we'll start doing him with a lighter skin tone. And we'll show you how we build that up first. So I'm going to start that now. And with our first paint, we're going to put a base coat down to the face. We're going to take a little bit of Rakarth Flesh, and we're just going to lightly go over the entire face here. So we're going to take our Rakarth Flesh, and we're just going to do the face. Don't worry about being too neat and tidy. We're going to shade it, and that'll clean it up a little bit more. We're going to put this Rakarth Flesh base layer down. Pretty much like so. So we'll keep going at this. We'll be back here in a few minutes when it's dry. So now that the base coat of Rakarth Flesh is done, what we're going to do now is add a nice shade of Reikland Fleshshade. And we're just going to spread that all across the face, letting it work its way into the details, and then we'll let it dry. So this is what he looks like now, and you'll see him in a few minutes when that's done. So now that our Fleshshade is dry, we're going to move on to our first highlight layer. We're going to take a little bit of Cadian Fleshtone. We're just going to try our best to dry brush that right over the model without destroying the shade that we've got there. We're just lightly going to brush that on, just like so. So I'll kind of leave it like that for a few minutes and be back in a few more minutes for the next highlight layer. Now that the Cadian flesh tone is dry, what we're going to do now is add a little bit of Kislev flesh as a one last dry brush layer, highlight layer. It's pretty light, so you don't need much. Be sure to hit the cheekbones and the bridge of the nose, as those are the brightest spots that are going to pick up the light. Pretty much like that. Just like that. Next, what we're going to do is take a little drop of Nuln Oil shade and just drop that right into the eyeball socket to add some definition there. Just like that, just to add a little bit more definition there. So now that we've finished the shade and we've got a little bit more definition in the face, what we're going to do now is just add one little drop of Carroberg Crimson shade and drop that into the mouth, just to add a little bit of a red tinge there. So when it dries, it'll fill in the hole and he'll have a red mouth, and it's easier than painting it ourselves. the last thing we're going to do for our model's face here is we're going to do the hair, and I think we're going to make it black. So we're going to take a little bit of Abaddon black first, followed by a dry brush of Eshen gray. And that will finish off our model. So we'll just do that on the face here. And we'll keep doing this and be back here in a few minutes. So now we're going to start our infiltrator. And we're going to start doing the darker skin tone of the face we're going to use here. So the first thing we're going to do on this is we're going to take a base of Catachan flesh. And we're going to paint that over all the skin. So in this case, we'll be mindful of the respirators and such, but on other heads, it probably doesn't matter. So we'll use our Catachan skin here now, Catachan flesh, and we'll be back in a few minutes once that's all finished. So this is our model now that we finished with the base coat. So the Catachan flesh is dried. So now we're going to add our first shade, and what we're going to do is add a little bit of Reikland Fleshshade to that. So we're just going to spread that liberally. It'll fill in all the gaps, and then we will get ready to put a highlight layer after that. So we'll put our Reikland Fleshshade on and be back in a few moments here. Now that the Reikland Fleshshade is dried, we're going to move on to our first highlight layer here. We're going to take a little Bloodreaver flesh. Very carefully, try not to fill in our shade, add that nice highlight layer if we can. So we're just trying to pick out the high points here, above the brow, the nose, up around the temples. So we'll keep doing that and be back here in a few minutes when that's done. So our last highlight layer will be a very, very dry brush of Knight-Questor flesh. Of course, it's a lighter color, so we want even less of it. Yeah, dry brush that right over the front of the face, picking up the brow, on top of the head. Just like so. So now that the highlight layer is dry, we're going to take a little tiny drop of Ushabti bone and put that right in each eye. It's very bright, so you don't need much. Just like that. So we'll be back here in a few moments once that's dry. Now that the Ushabti's bone's dry, what we're going to do now is take a little drop of Nuln Oil shade and just drop that into the eyes, just to add a little bit more definition there. So now that the face is finished, we're going to move on to the hair, of which we're going to make that black as well. So we're going to put a little bit of Abaddon Black as a base, followed by Eshen Gray as a highlight layer. And then that'll finish off pretty much the face for our model here in this case. So there's our two finished models, and you can see both faces quite clearly, and I'm pretty happy with the way both came out. So if you found this helpful, please feel free to leave a like or a comment at the bottom of the channel, and otherwise than that, we'll see you at our next little painting video. This one was pretty quick, but I thought it useful to put all the skin tones in one place so they're easily to accessible or easy for reference. You can see one. And you can see the other. So with that, we'll see you at our next video. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for a couple of photos at the end of the two models here.